This video is sponsored by Squarespace. What's going on, people? Today we're about to explore the evidence behind how Attack on Titan could actually have an anime original ending. For a bit of context here, when the final chapter of the manga was released, it led to a massive reaction online, with one side of the fanbase being happy with how things ended, while the other side didn't exactly feel the same way. If you follow my channel, you'll know that I thought the ending was mostly good. However, I can also acknowledge there were certain plot points that could have been wrapped up in a more satisfying way. For many people though, their disappointment with the finale became so much that eventually tons of theories started being posted about how the anime would break away from the manga to create a brand new ending. The events of this new ending will vary depending on which theory you happen to look at, but usually Eren is nearly always the father of Historia's baby, and he completes a full-scale rumbling of the entire planet. Having now read a few of these theories myself, I thought it would be fun to come up with my own spin on the idea, and the aim of this video is to convince you that an anime original ending could hypothetically make sense, regardless of whether it ends up happening or not. Before we get into it though, this channel is on the long road to 500k subscribers, and so I genuinely appreciate it if you smash that sub button if you haven't already. Okay, so the core of this theory relies on there being at least 4 separate timelines, which are the original timeline, the manga timeline, the Lost Girls timeline, and finally the anime timeline. In order to explain how all of these universes are connected, we first need to examine the source of all living matter, also known as the weird creature living inside Eren's spine. This ancient worm is the thing that gave humanity the power of the Titans, and at its full potential it literally has the ability to bend reality itself. What I mean by that is that up until now, the coordinate has enabled Eren to see the future, influence the past, and enter a dimension that transcends time and space. But what you might not have realized is that its true power is even more significant. During episode 19 of the final season, Eren experienced visions not just from the past and the future, but also from an actual alternate timeline that exists in the multiverse. This glimpse of Goth Mikasa and nerdy Armin is from a completely different reality, in which the main characters attend a modern day high school. In their universe, Titans haven't existed for at least 100 years, and personally, I never used to take this timeline seriously until the anime made it 110% canon. For Goth Mikasa to appear in Eren's memories in both episode 19 and the manga, it proves beyond any doubt that the source of all living matter is connected to the multiverse. This connection is precisely what makes the anime original ending possible, with Mikasa being the trigger that causes new universes to be created. Way back in 2013, a visual novel called Lost Girls introduced us to the idea of multiple realities in Attack on Titan, and since then it's been adapted into a comic version and an anime version. The story takes place during season 1 after Mikasa finds out that Eren was eaten by the Santa Claus Titan, and in her grief she experiences a vision from another universe. In this other reality, a ton of things were different, but I guess the main things we need to focus on for now is that her parents were never killed by kidnappers, and her love for Eren was just as strong even without him having to save her life. By the time the vision comes to an end, Mikasa questions whether everything she just saw was really just a dream, with the novel implying that her soul left her body and experienced memories from another world. The anime adaptation takes things even further, as it basically confirms that Mikasa's grief is what leads to the creation of these new branch timelines. Seemingly, whenever Eren dies, Mikasa's emotions become so intense that the source of all living matter manifests a new reality. In these realities, the characters have a chance to try things again differently, and sometimes they even remember fleeting memories from their alternate selves. This could explain why Mikasa has suffered from headaches for a long time, since the pain could be a side effect of her memories being viewed by alternate versions of herself and alternate versions of YMIR. Moving on, now that we've established the multiverse is a thing, it's time to break down how the 4 main realities are connected. Starting with the original timeline, as the name suggests, this was the very first timeline to exist, and in it, Mikasa confessed her true feelings. One important thing you need to remember is that during the trip to Liberia, Eren was seriously doubting whether he wanted to go through with the rumbling. That's why he decided to ask Mikasa why she cares about him, because depending on her response, he was willing to give up on his plan to destroy the world. In this original timeline, she gave him the answer he wanted by telling him how she really felt, and following that they run away together to live out his remaining years in peace. The house they were living in was presumably built by the Attack Titan, and for the next 4 years it seemed like most of their days were spent either relaxing, fishing, or collecting wood. Gradually though, the time came when the curse of YMIR began to destroy Eren's body, which is what happens to every Titan shifter once they've had the power for too long. Knowing that his death was unavoidable, Eren made Mikasa promise to move on after he dies, and it's why she doesn't cry when he eventually passes away. Even though she was devastated on the inside, she puts on a brave face so that he doesn't know how much she's grieving, hence why her final words to him were just "see you later." Mikasa's extreme pain in this moment is what causes the founder to manifest a new branch timeline, and this reality is the version we see in the manga. For anyone watching who hasn't read chapter 1, early on it shows Eren having a dream in which Mikasa says to him "see you later" just like how she did at the end of his first life. The dream then goes black, which symbolizes his death, and then he wakes up under a tree in a similar position to how he was when he died. This is all meant to show that the manga is the start of a brand new reality, and when he wakes up he even asks Mikasa why her hair has gotten so long because he's comparing it to their time in the mountains. What this proves is that deep inside a person's mind, they can remember emotions they felt from an alternate reality, and these emotions can then cause them to make different decisions. For instance, when Eren asks Mikasa how she feels in the manga timeline, she hesitates to answer the question and then goes on to give him the one answer that he didn't want. The reason she did this is because subconsciously she remembers that confessing her love last time is what led to his eventual death, and so she chooses to answer another way in the hope that somehow Eren might be saved if they do things differently. Of course, things did end up differently, but not in the way that she wanted, with everything coming to a climax in chapter 138. In that chapter, Eren had wiped out 80% of the world's population, and by this point it was clear the only way to stop him was to kill him. The extreme stress of the situation caused her to have a blistering headache, and while her head was throbbing, she tearfully thinks how she wants to go back to their home. As she says this, the chapter flashes back to their previous life in the original timeline, showing that under the right circumstances, Mikasa can vividly remember memories from other realities. In particular, she remembers the moment when Eren asked her to forget about him after his death, but in the present day of the manga timeline, she just doesn't have the strength to actually do it. 3 years later, a still devastated Mikasa sits beside his grave, and it's clear that she still hasn't gotten over the fact that he's not going to be coming back. In case you've never seen this panel before, Eren's decapitated head is buried beneath the same tree from chapter 1, and since Mikasa hasn't gotten over him, her emotions trigger the creation of another branch timeline where Eren violently wakes up in the same spot. Notice how in this new timeline he doesn't peacefully awaken like before, but instead the anime focuses purely on his head, referencing the fact that this is where his head was buried in the previous reality. On top of that, his dream is also now completely different, because rather than witnessing a vision of Mikasa saying "see you later," he now sees memories from the future of his mother being eaten, titans invading the walls, and perhaps most importantly, he sees kids' toys inside a royal-looking bedroom. This was arguably the first major hint towards an anime original ending, since why else would Eren see a vision of children's toys unless those toys belong to a child that he has some kind of connection to? In episode 28 of the final season, Historia asks Eren what he thinks about her becoming pregnant, and this moment was super important. If she hadn't gotten pregnant, then the military police would have killed Zeke long before the Yaeger bros were able to make contact. So to put it simply, Historia's baby is what enabled the rumbling to happen. That's why it's entirely feasible that Eren could be the father, because Historia having this baby is something that benefits his own goals. The memory of these toys is just further indication that this might be the case, and what's crazier is that it might not be the only memory that deviates from the manga. As an example, we know that when Eren kissed Historia's hand, he saw his own future through the eyes of Grisha, but the audience never gets to see that future for ourselves. For all we know, anime Eren could have seen a future in which he wipes out 100% of humanity, which is a huge difference to manga Eren, who allowed the Alliance to stop him before it got to that point. What if, in this anime timeline, his subconscious mind remembers the regret he felt the last time around, and chooses to go down a different path where he can survive and be with his friends? If this is the case, then it would mean the ending of the anime will drastically diverge from the manga, and in a minute I'm going to explain what Eren would have to do. Before we continue though, it's worth highlighting the importance of the Lost Girls timeline. As I mentioned earlier, this reality is the one that Mikasa created after she thought Eren had been killed in trust, and the reason it matters is because it demonstrates that even in a perfect world, there's nothing that can save him from death. To summarize the plot points that I haven't talked about already, in this timeline the warriors never breached the wall, most likely because they decided to return home after Marcel got eaten. This meant that most of humanity inside the walls continued to believe that the Survey Corps were useless, and eventually this leads to them getting shut down by the royal government. In this reality, Mikasa had already told Eren that she didn't like the idea of him joining the Scouts, so now that they don't exist anymore, you'd expect that the two of them could now have a peaceful life on the island. However, Eren being Eren, his desire for freedom was so intense that he and Armin spent months planning how they would escape to the outside. In the manga version, the two of them were fixing up a small airplane that was left behind by Armin's parents, but in the anime version they were working on a hot air balloon to lift them over YMIR. Unfortunately, in both scenarios, the vehicles slam into the wall, killing Eren in the process, and the moral of the story was that no matter how many worlds Mikasa creates, she'll never be able to save his life. In every universe, he'll seemingly always die regardless of whether he has Titan powers or not, so the question then becomes, could the anime original ending be the one exception? For the purpose of this video, the answer to that question is maybe, although as we're about to see, things would need to change pretty drastically for that to happen. First off, we have to assume that Eren in the anime did in fact see different future memories, and from that point onwards he would have known things that no other version of the character was aware of. Information like that would then enable him to make different choices when it comes to the final season, and there's one particular moment we need to focus on. During the final battle, Zeke tries to help the Alliance by revealing himself to Levi, and without hesitation the captain swoops in to decapitate the Beast Titan. By killing Zeke, the rumbling then immediately comes to a stop, since Eren needed to maintain contact with the Titan of Royal Blood. Meanwhile, at the exact same time this was all going on, back on Paradise, Historia was shown to be giving birth. It was established in Season 3 that newborn Eldian babies can inherit the power of a Titan shifter, but only if that shifter dies without passing down their abilities. Given that Zeke died without passing down the Beast Titan, and given that Historia was going through labor at the same time, the story is literally spelling it out for us that her royal-blooded baby inherited his Titan. On a personal level, this is something I've been talking about ever since the day Zeke's death was first confirmed, and I thought it was wasted potential that such an interesting plot point never ended up affecting the finale. For that reason, in an anime original ending, it'd be interesting to see Eren using this royal baby to reactivate the rumbling, and there's one realistic way it can happen. If we flash back to when the Yaeger bros first made contact, there was a good 5 to 10 seconds where a huge lightning bolt shoots down into Shiganshina. During that moment, Eren could have done the same thing as Lara Taiba, and essentially used the lightning as a conduit to send himself underground. While underground, he could then encase himself in a crystal in exactly the same way she did, and he could stay in this position until his body fully regenerates. On top of that, he could then remotely control his massive Titan on the surface by using the Warhammer cable. And remember, since this cable is made from Titan hardening, the founder can keep extending it for literally as long as he needs to. It's highly unlikely that anyone in Shiganshina would even notice if he did this, considering they'd be too distracted by the falling debris, pure Titans, and politics, giving Eren all the time he needs to put things in place. As the founder, he could easily control one of Zeke's Titans and make them bring his crystal near to Historia's location, and at that point he just needs to sit back and wait for things to play out. Days later, when Levi eventually beheads the Beast Titan and brings the rumbling to a stop, that would be Eren's signal to exit his shell and make contact with the royal baby. This fresh contact with the Titan of Royal Blood would once again give him access to the coordinate, and I reckon there are two main things he'd want to do. Number one, the Colossal Titans would begin marching forward again as he restarts the rumbling, and number two, he'd bring his friends into pause to explain the situation. Eren would have to make it super clear that although he gave them the freedom to try and stop him, in this reality there's nothing left they can do to actually win. That's why he'd offer everyone in the Alliance the chance to return to the island, where they can continue their lives or even start a whole new life without the fear of being hunted down by Marley. Over the next couple days, 100% of the world's population would then be eradicated, leaving a planet where only the Eldian Empire exists. Mass murder on this scale is something the Alliance obviously wanted to avoid, but for the people on the island, they'd be on the side of the Yaegerists and would worship Eren as the closest thing they have to a god. From a purely political standpoint, I think most people would want him to become the new ruler of Eldia, which is something Floch outright stated during the final season. However, Eren has never had that kind of ambition, and instead I think his main focus would be rebuilding his broken relationships. This is what brings us to how the Titan curse would come to an end in the anime original timeline, because if Eren is going to survive in this universe, the curse has to disappear one way or another. If we examine the manga timeline for a sec, the reason Titan powers seemingly disappeared wasn't just because Eren was killed, but rather it was because Eren was killed by Mikasa while the founder was watching. His death under those specific circumstances is what ended the curse of YMIR, because YMIR saw that Mikasa was able to let the person she loves die, something the founder herself was never able to do. In Ymir's mind, the concept of love was intertwined with the idea of her being a slave and Fritz being the master, meaning she always did what he wanted even if that meant making Titans for 2,000 years. However, by Mikasa being able to kill the man she loved, Ymir learnt that breaking free from her slave mindset is possible, and that was the true cause of the Titan curse disappearing. Therefore, for the Titan curse to disappear in the anime timeline, it's crucial that Ymir learns this same lesson but without someone having to kill Eren. The way I see it, there's very few ways that can happen, especially considering that Mikasa still loves him regardless of whether he's a mass murderer. Bearing that in mind, there's almost nothing Eren could do that would make Mikasa willingly turn her back on him, which is I guess what would have to happen in this timeline for the founder to find peace. However, after thinking about it for a while, I did come up with one controversial thing that has the potential to make this a reality, and that's if Eren is really the father of Historia's baby. If something like that was to be confirmed, it might just be enough to force Mikasa to move on, cause she'd feel betrayed on like a million different levels. When it comes to Ymir, she often saw Fritz with other women, and it's heavily implied she never had the courage to do or say anything about it. So if Mikasa was to react by leaving Eren forever, then amazingly that could be enough to eradicate the power of the Titans. Ultimately, the only way to remove the curse of YMIR is for Ymir's spirit to be at peace, and if the only way she can find peace is by learning these lessons through Mikasa, then this is the way it has to be. Honestly, I do wish there was a better way that Titan powers could disappear, but based on the ending we got in the manga, this was the most logical method that didn't involve Eren dying or Mikasa dying. Of course, a sad consequence would be that the original trio would be split up forever, with Armin being like a parent who has custody of Mikasa during the week and then custody of Eren every other weekend. Anyhow people, that was my take on how an anime original ending could theoretically make sense, and if you liked it then I'd appreciate if you hit that like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Before we end today's video, I wanted to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Squarespace. Thanks to Squarespace, I recently began designing my own website, which is going to be a place where I'll be uploading articles, blog posts, and other cool stuff related to the channel. As someone without any experience at building websites, it usually would have been impossible for me to build something like this without help, but thanks to the dozens of easy to use templates, the whole process became super easy to understand. If you've ever thought about starting a blog or website of your own, then I recommend heading over to squarespace.com/todokwork, where you'll have access to a 2-week free trial, and when you're finally ready to launch, you'll save 10% off your first purchase of a domain. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and the link is in the description for anyone who wants to get started.